Good morning. So now we're going to go ahead and continue our read-alouds of Esperanza Rising, Chapter 6, Las Cebollas. So please get your copy of your book, turn to page 100, and we'll go ahead and get started, okay? All right, here we go. We're here, said Isabel, as the truck turned into camp and slowed to a crawl. Esperanza stood up and looked over the cab. They were in a large clearing surrounded by grape fields. Row upon row of white wooden cabins formed long lines, connected like bunkhouses. Each cabin had one small window and two wooden steps that led to the door. She couldn't help but think they weren't even as nice as the servants' cabins in Aguascalientes. They reminded Esperanza more of the horse stalls on the ranch than a place for people to live. A big mountain loomed in the east, framing one side of the valley. Marta jumped out and ran toward some girls standing together near the cabins. Esperanza could hear them talking in English, the words hard and clipped, as if they were speaking with sticks in their mouths. They all looked at her and laughed. She turned away, thinking that if Isabel could learn English, then maybe someday she could learn it too. A line of flatbed trucks pulled into a clearing and campesinos hopped down, home from the fields. People called to one another. Children ran to their fathers, yelling, "Papi, papi!" Esperanza felt a deep pang. She watched and wondered how she would fit into this world. Isabel pointed to a wooden building off to the side. "That's where they have all the toilets." Esperanza cringed as she tried to imagine having no privacy. Cringed is a great word, and it's exactly what I She shuddered, she shook. Ugh, she doesn't like the idea. And I know some of you, I don't think most of you would like the idea. All right. "We're lucky," said Isabel solemnly. That's a great word. "In some cabins, we had to go in ditches." Okay, I'll take the bathrooms versus the ditches. So what do you think solemnly means? If Isabel is saying that this is better than what they had before, solemnly must mean what? If you said seriously, correct. And if you didn't, annotate it so that way you know it for next time. Okay? Esperanza looked down at her, swallowed, and nodded, thankful for something, and I would be thankful too, versus a ditch. A foreman came over and shook hands with Juan and Alfonso and pointed to the cabin in front of the truck. The women got out, took the babies, and helped me get with the bags. Mama and Esperanza walked into the cabin. It had two small rooms. One half of the front room was the kitchen with a stove, sink, and counter, and the table with chairs. A pile of wood waited near the stove. So I'm guessing this is a wood-burning stove? Across the room was a mattress on the floor. The back room had another big mattress, big enough for two people, and a tiny cot. In between sat a wooden fruit crate that's to be used as a night table, its sides touching each bed. Above was another small window. That is a big change to the Hacienda de las Rosas, correct? Mama looked around and then gave Esperanza a weak smile. "Is this our cabin or Hortensia's and Alfonso's?" asked Esperanza, hoping that hers and Mama's might be better. We're all together in this cabin," said Mama. "Mama! We can't possibly all fit." "Esperanza, they would only give one cabin for each man with a family. So remember how Mama couldn't own land in Mexico? Here in the U.S., she can't even get a job without having a man as head of the family. This must make it hard for Esperanza's Mama. And it's also not fair. There is no housing for single women. This is a family camp, so we must have a male head of the household to live and work here. And that is Alfonso. Mama sank on to the bed. Her voice sounded tired. He has told them we are his cousins, and if anyone asks us, we must say it's true. So they have to pretend they are Alfonso's cousins. Otherwise, they can't be on the camp. We are next door to Juan and Josefina, so Alfonso's brother and his sister-in-law. So we can adjust the sleeping arrangements. Miguel will sleep next door with them and the babies. And Isabel will sleep here with Alfonso, Hortensia, and us. So let's write this down for a second. So everyone has to pretend they're family. Not that Alfonso's faking it, though. So in this cabin, not much. 2 steps, they said. The door and the window. And then there's another cabin. 2 steps, the door, and the window. So this is Juan's cabin, Alfonso's brother, and this is Alfonso's cabin, Juan's brother. So here we will have Josefina, of course, his wife, the twins, and Miguel. In this cabin, we're going to have Esperanza, Mama, Isabel, as well as Hortensia. That's a lot of people in 2 houses, right? And they're only 2 rooms. Not even 2 bedrooms, 2 rooms. But you know what? You gotta do what you gotta do. At least that's what they're doing in this book. Okay, let's continue. Miguel came in and set down their valises, then left. Esperanza could hear Alfonso and Hortensia in the next room, talking about the camp office. Mama got up to unpack and began to sing. Esperanza felt anger crawling up her throat. Mama, we are living like horses. How can you sing? How can you be happy? We don't even have a room to call our own. The talking suddenly stopped in the other room. Mama gave Esperanza a long, hard look. She calmly walked over and shut the door to the small room. Sit down, she said. Esperanza sat on the tiny cot, its springs screeching. Mama sat on the bed opposite her, their knees almost touching. Esperanza, if we had stayed in Mexico and I had married Tío Luis, we would have had one choice: to be apart and miserable. Here, we have 2 choices: to be together and miserable, or to be together and happy. Mija, we have each other, and Abuelita will come. How would she want you to behave? I choose to be happy. So which will you choose? She knew what Mama wanted to hear. Happy, she said quietly. 1 second, my computer is being silly. There we go. Do you know how lucky we are, Esperanza? Many people come to this valley and wait months for a job. Juan went to a lot of trouble to make sure we had this cabin waiting for us when we got here. Please be grateful for the favors bestowed upon us. Ooh, bestowed. I like that word. Let's take a moment and think about it. Please be grateful for the favors bestowed upon us. What do you think bestowed means? No idea? Well, if you're struggling, bestowed means to be, well, these are favors that are blank upon them. What word works there? Placed or given. Yeah, if you got something along those lines, you've got a good idea with context clues. But if you didn't, please annotate again the word so you can know it for future reference. All right, let's continue. All right. Mama bent over and kissed her, then left the room. Esperanza lay down on the cot. A few minutes later, Isabel came in and sat on the bed. Will you tell me what it's like to be so very rich? Isabel, she's cute. She wants to know about being a rich girl. She looked at Isabel, her eyes anticipating some wonderful story. Esperanza was quiet for a moment, clinging to one possible thought. Then she said, I am still rich, Isabel. We will only be here until Abuelita is well enough to travel. Then she will come with her money and we will buy a big house. Has Esperanza given up on the idea that she's no longer a rich girl? She thinks so. She thinks that Abuelita will bring her money. But do you think Tío Luis will let her Abuelita go with all that money from the... is it Luis? Yes, Luis. Will he let him go with all that money from the bank? Knowing Luis, I don't think so. Let's continue, though. Maybe there's a chance, but I highly doubt it. Let's see. Then she will come with her money in... a house that Papa would be proud for us to live in. Maybe we will buy 2 houses so that Hortensia, Alfonso, and Miguel can live in one and work for us again. Ay, Dios mío. And you can visit Isabel. You see, this is only temporary. He will not be here for long. ¿De veras? Asked Isabel. Yes, it is the truth, said Esperanza, staring at the ceiling that someone had covered with newspaper and cardboard. My papa would never have wanted us to live in a place like this. She closed her eyes and heard Isabel tiptoe out of the room and shut the door. The weariness from the days of travel flooded over her, and her mind wandered from people peeing in ditches, to Marta's rudeness, to the horse stalls at El Rancho de las Rosas. How could she be happy or grateful when she had never been so more miserable in her life? Squiggly line. Remember? Change of scenery or setting. When Esperanza opened her eyes again, it was almost light, and she heard Mama, Hortensia, and Alfonso talking in the next room. She had slept through dinner and the entire night. She smelled café and chorizo. The coffee and sausage made her stomach growl, and she tried to remember when she had last eaten. Isabel was still asleep in the bed next to hers, so Esperanza quietly pulled on the long wrinkled shirt and white blouse. She brushed her hair and went to the other room. Good morning, said Mama. Sit down and eat something. You must be starved. At the table, Hortensia patted her hand. You missed going to the foreman's office last night. We signed the papers to live here. We already have work today. Mama put a plate of tortilla, eggs, and sausage in front of her. Where did all the food come from? Asked Esperanza. Josefina, said Hortensia. She brought some groceries until we can go to the store this weekend. Esperanza, said Mama, you and Isabel will be watching the babies while the rest of us work. Alfonso and Juan will be picking grapes, and Hortensia, Josefina, and I will be packing the grapes in the sheds. But I want to work with you, and Hortensia, and Josefina. You are not old enough to work in the shed, said Mama. And Isabel is not old enough to watch the babies by herself. If you watch the babies, then Josefina can work, and that is one more paying job between us. We must all do our part. You will do the camp job too, sweeping the wooden platform every afternoon, for which they will deduct a little from our rent each month. You know I'm going to ask, what do you think deduct means? So if she sweeps, they will deduct a little of the rent because she's doing an extra chore, a job. Yeah, take off. Make a save. But yeah, take off a little bit of their rent, which I think they said was $7 for a month. It may not sound like a lot, but back then it was. Especially for the work they're doing and the pay they're getting. All right. Isabel can show you what to do later. What's the platform? Esperanza asked. It's this big wooden floor outside in the middle of the camp. Juan said they use it for meetings and dances, said Mama. Esperanza stared at her food. She didn't want to be stuck in camp with the children. Where's Miguel? She said. He already left for Bakersfield with some other men to look for work at the railroad, said Alfonso. Isabel went out of the bedroom, rubbing her eyes. Mi sobrina, my niece, said Hortensia, hugging Isabel. Go say good morning to your mother and father before we all leave for work. Isabel hugged her and ran next door. Esperanza studied Mama as she made un burrito de frijoles for lunch and wrapped the soft tortilla filled with pinto beans in paper. She looked different. Was it the long cotton dress and the big flowered apron tied to her waist? No, it was more than that. Mama, said Esperanza, your hair! Mama's hair ran down her back in a long single braid, almost touching her waist. Esperanza had never seen her Mama wear her hair that way. It was always done in a beautifully plaited bun, or for when she was ready for bed, brushed out and flowing. Mama looked shorter and somehow not herself. Esperanza didn't like it. Mama reached up and stroked the back of her head. She seemed embarrassed. I figured that I can't wear my hat on top of my hair, on top of a bun of my head. Wait, let me read that again. I figured that I can't wear a hat with my hair on top of my head. And this makes more sense, does it not? After all, I'm going to work today, not to a fiesta. Then she hugged Esperanza. We must go now. The trucks leave at 6:30 to take us to the sheds. Take good care of the babies and stay with Isabel. She knows the camp. As the three of them walked out, Esperanza noticed Mama reaching up, hesitantly touching her hair again. When Esperanza finished eating, she went outside and stood on the front step. Instead of facing another row of cabins, their cabin was in the last row facing the fields. Straight ahead, across the dirt road, there were several chinaberry trees and a mulberry tree that provided deep shade over the wooden table. Beyond the row of trees were grape fields, still lush. To the right, across the grassy field, was the main road. A truck piled high with produce drove by, losing a cloud of debris. Debris is another great word. So the truck is driving by and losing a cloud of debris. What would it be a cloud of? That's right, dirt. If you didn't say dirt, or you want to just annotate it even though you said it, go ahead and write debris can mean dirt. All right. After it passed, the sharp smell told her they were onions. Dry outer skins being shredded by the wind. Another truck followed. Again, the smell bit into her senses. Onions do have a strong smell. It was still early, so the air was cool, but the sun was bright, and she knew it would be hot soon. The hens, remember the hens that Carmen gave her? The hens pecked and poked around the front steps. They must have been happy to be off the train. Esperanza shooed them out of her waist as she turned and walked next door. The babies were still in their pajamas. Isabel was struggling to feed Lupe her oatmeal, while Pepe crawled on the floor. Splotches of his cereal still stuck on his cheeks. As soon as he saw Esperanza, he reached up for her. "Let's clean them up," said Isabel, "and then I'll show you the camp." First, Isabel took Esperanza to the platform that she was to sweep and showed her where the brooms were stored. Then they walked through the rows of cabins, each with a baby on her hip. As they passed open doors, Esperanza could already smell the beans and onions that someone had started simmering for dinner. Women were dragging big metal wash tubs beneath the shade trees. A group of young boys kicked a ball up and down the dirt road, stirring up dust. A little girl wearing a man's undershirt as a dress ran up to Isabel and took her hand. "This is Silvia. She is my best friend. Next week we will go to school together." Silvia switched around and grabbed Esperanza's free hand. Esperanza looked down at Silvia's dirty hands. Silvia grinned up at her, and Esperanza's first thought was to pull her hand away and wash it as soon as possible. But then she remembered Mama's kindness to the peasant girl on the train and her disappointment in Esperanza. She didn't want Silvia to start crying as if she were to pull away. She looked around the dusty camp and thought that it must be hard to stay clean in such a place. She squeezed Silvia's hand and said, "I have a best friend too. Her name is Marisol, and she lives in Aguascalientes." So, did Esperanza learn her lesson from the train? Yeah. Though that poor girl cried, she didn't make this other girl cry. I'm glad she's learning. Isabel introduced Esperanza to Irene and Melina, two women who were hanging clothes on to dry on the long line stretched between the cabins in a tree. Irene had long gray hair tied in a tail. Melina did not look much older than Miguel, and she already had a baby of her own. So remember, Miguel was how old again? 16, right. So Melina is not that much older, and she already has her own baby. "We heard the story of how you came from Aguascalientes," said Melina. "My husband is from there. He used to work for Señor Rodriguez." Esperanza's face lit up at this news. "He knew my father since he was a boy. Do you think your husband knew Marisol, Señor Rodriguez's daughter?" Melina laughed. No, I'm sure he didn't. He was un campesino, a field servant. He would not know the family. Esperanza felt awkward. There's that word again. And didn't mean to make Melina admit that her husband was a servant. But Melina didn't seem bothered and began recalling other farms her husband had worked on in Aguascalientes. Isabel pulled on Esperanza's arm. "We need to change the babies." Not going to be pleasant, I'm going to tell you this. As they walked back to the cabin, she said, "They are mother and daughter. They came over to talk and crochet with my mother all the time. How do they know all about us already?" Isabel raised her hand and made her fingers tap up and down, as if a mouth were talking. "Everyone in camp knows each other's business." In other words, los chismes corren. "Do you know how to change a diaper?" asked Esperanza when they got back to the cabin. "Certainly," said Isabel. "I will change them, And you can rinse out the diapers. We need to do some laundry too. Remember, this is 1920s, so do you think they have disposable diapers? Like we do now? No, they did not. They had the cloth diapers. So what do you think that means then? Yep, they're going to have to wash the dirty diapers. Let's see how Esperanza takes this challenge on. You think she'll be graceful? Or do you think she's going to struggle? Let's find out. Esperanza watched as the young girl laid the babies down one at a time, unpinned their diapers, and wiped their bottoms clean, and then pinned down the fresh diapers. Isabel handed Esperanza the smelly bundles and said, "Take them to the toilets and dump them. I will fill the wash tub." Esperanza held them at arm's length and almost ran to the toilets. Several more onion trucks ran by. Oh, she got sticky diapers and onion smell. Ooh. Their smell accosting her eyes and nose as much as the diapers. Ooh, accosting. What do you think? She's got the smell of dirty diapers and onions, and the smell is accosting her eyes. What do you think accosting could mean? Stinging, bothering, attacking. All of those synonyms work. Let's go ahead and annotate that if you haven't done so already. Okay. By the time she got back, Isabel had already filled 2 wash tubs with water from the outside pipe and was swirling soap around in one of them. A washboard was propped inside. Esperanza went to the wash tub and hesitated, staring into the water. Bits of onion skins floated on the surface of the soapy water. She held the corner of one of the diapers, slightly dipping it in and out of the water. Her hand never getting wet, so she's not even putting her hands in the water. "Now what?" she said. "Esperanza, you must scrub 'em like this." Isabel walked over, took the diapers, and plunged them into the wash tub, into the water, up to her elbows. The water quickly became murky. Why do you think it got dirty? What was in those diapers? You guessed it. She rubbed the diapers with soap, vigorously scrubbing them back and forth on the washboard, and then wrung them out. So is she bothered that she's cleaning these diapers? It sounds like she's done this a lot. And it's twins, so it's 2 sets of diapers each time. Then she transferred them into the next tub, rinsing and wringing them out. Isabel took out the clean diapers and hung them on the line stretched between the chinaberry and mulberry trees. Then she started on the clothes. Esperanza was amazed. She had never washed anything in her life, and Isabel, who was only 8 years old, made it look so easy. Puzzled, Isabel looked at Esperanza. "Don't you know how to wash clothes?" "Well, Hortensia took everything out to the laundry quarters, and the servants, they always..." She looked at Isabel and shook her head. "No." Isabel's eyes got bigger, and she looked worried. "Esperanza, when I go to school next week, you will be here all alone with the babies, and we'll have to do the laundry." So now she's going to also have to do the laundry and watch the babies while Isabel goes to school. Esperanza took a deep breath and said weakly, "I can learn." So Isabel has to be a really good teacher right now and teach Esperanza what she needs to know, because Esperanza has never worked a day in her life. "And later today, you must sweep the platform." You do know how to sweep." "Of course," said Esperanza. She had seen people sweep many times. Many, many times, she assured herself. Besides, She already was too embarrassed about the washing to admit anything else to Isabel. So does she know how to sweep? Mm-mm. Let's find out how bad this goes. Isabel sat with the babies while Esperanza went to sweep the platform. The camp was quiet, and even though it was late in the day, the sun was unrelenting. She retrieved the broom and stepped onto the wooden platform. Dried and brittle onion skins were everywhere. In her entire life, Esperanza had never held a broom in her hand. But she had seen Hortensia sweep. She tried to visualize that memory. It couldn't possibly be that hard. She put both hands in the middle of the broomstick and moved it back and forth and swung it wildly. The motion seemed awkward, and the fine dirt on the wood planks lifted into a cloud. Onion jackets flew into the air instead of gathering together in a neat pile like Hortensia's. Esperanza's elbows did not know what to do. Neither did her arms. She felt streams of perspiration sliding down her neck. She stopped for a moment and stared at the broom, as if willing it to behave. Determined, she tried again. She hadn't noticed that several trucks were already unloading workers nearby. Then she heard it. First, a small tittering. And then louder. And she turned around. A group of women were laughing at her. And in the middle of the group was Marta, pointing. La Cenicienta! Cinderella, she laughed. Burning with humiliation, Esperanza dropped the broom and ran back to the cabin. So, just to get an idea, I did bring my broom to show you guys what I imagine this to look like. So, let me just grab my broom here. So, when you grab a broom, usually you hold it like this from the top. And you make small strokes, correct? One hand on the middle, one hand on the top. This was what I imagine Esperanza did. So she said 2 hands on the middle of the broom, so right around here. It's the middle. And then she went swinging wildly, so she had to go like this, like really weird motions. So did she know what she was doing? No. And I imagine she was very embarrassed by it. And Marta did not help. Alright, let's go back to the story. Alright. In her room, she sat at the edge of her cot, her face flushed again at the thought of the ridicule. She was still sitting there, staring at the wall when Isabel found her. I said I could work. I told Mama I could help. But I cannot even wash clothes or sweep a floor. Does the whole camp know? Isabel sat down on the bed next to her and patted her back. Yes. Esperanza groaned. I will never be able to show my face. She put her head in her hands and until she heard someone else come into the room. Esperanza looked up to see Miguel holding a broom and a dustpan, but he wasn't laughing. She looked down and bit her lip so she wouldn't cry in front of him. He shut the door, then stood in front of her and said, How would you know how to sweep a floor? The only thing you've ever learned was how to give orders. That is not your fault, Ansa. Look at me. She looked up. Pay attention, he said, his face serious. You hold the broom like this. One hand here and the other here. So what is Miguel going to do? Yeah, he's going to teach her how to sweep. See, Esperanza could say many mean things, but it seems like Miguel is trying to be a really good friend. He might even see her as a sister. Or maybe more, but for now, let's just say a really good friend. Alright, where were we? Esperanza watched. Then you push like this, or pull it toward you like this. Here, you try, he said, holding out the broom. Slowly, Esperanza got up and took the broom from him. He positioned her hands on the handle. She tried to copy him, but her movements were too big. Smaller strokes, said Miguel, coaching, and sweep all in one direction. She did as he said. Now, when you get all the dirt into a pile, you hold the broom down here, near the bottom, and you push the dirt into the pan. Esperanza collected the dirt. See, you can do it. Miguel raised his thick eyebrows and smiled. Someday you just might make a very good servant. Isabel giggled. Esperanza could not find humor in the situation. Somberly, she said, Thank you, Miguel. He grinned and bowed. At your service, mi reina. But this time, his voice was kind. She remembered that he had gone to look for work at the railroad. Did you get a job? His smile faded. He put his hands in his pockets and shrugged. It is frustrating. I can fix any engine, but they will only hire Mexicans to lay tracks and dig ditches, not as mechanics. I've decided to work in the fields until I can convince someone to give me a chance. Esperanza nodded. After he left the room, Isabel said, He calls you mi reina? Will you tell me about your life as a queen? Esperanza sat on the mattress and patted the spot next to her. Isabel sat down. Isabel, I will tell you all about how I used to live, about parties and private school and beautiful dresses. I will even show you the beautiful doll my papa bought me, if you will teach me how to pin diapers, how to wash, and... Isabel interrupted her. But that is so easy! Esperanza stood up and carefully practiced with the broom. It is not easy for me. So, Esperanza has now gone through a whole day at camp. She's learned a lot thanks to Isabel and Miguel. We're going to learn more about Esperanza's journey in Chapter 7, but for now, go ahead and work on your reading questions. Remember to pay attention because tomorrow you will be taking a quiz on Chapters 5 and 6. If you want to go back and reread or even watch the videos again to help you to prepare, go ahead. And remember, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to message me on our Google Classroom. All right, 219. Until we see each other again, have a good day. Bye-bye.